We often imagine medieval survival as crude, primitive, and hopeless. But what if they had techniques that even today's survivalists have never heard of? No electricity, no matches, no lighters, and yet they kept fire alive for days. Inside a hollowed-out branch sealed with wax, they smoked grain to preserve it, built fences that grew back, stored heat, stored cold, waterproofed with pine resin and animal fat. They navigated by sound, passed on knowledge without books, not guesswork, not instinct, but a sophisticated survival system built without anything we rely on today. In this video, you'll discover 7 forgotten medieval survival techniques, techniques that could save your life when the modern world collapses. And by the end, only one question will remain. Were they the primitive ones, or are we the ones more vulnerable now? Picture this. You're living in the 14th century in a remote village of northern Europe. No modern fireplace, no backup fuel. Winter lasts 4 months. The ground is frozen. The wind cuts like blades. If your fire dies out, your family might not survive the night. Back then, people had no luxury of just lighting it again. Dry wood, flint, tinder, not always an option. So instead of making fire, they mastered the art of keeping it alive. This isn't legend. It's a real method documented in monastery records, Scandinavian excavations, and folk memory, portable fire bundles, a system for carrying living fire. And this is the first survival skill, a system no modern lighter can replace, the art of keeping the flame alive. Skill 1. Portable fire bundles carry the flame. Never let it die. In a world without matches, lighters, or propane, creating fire was hard. But keeping it alive was everything. Medieval people knew when the fire dies, so does life. So they didn't let it die. They carried it with them. They built living fire tubes, hollow stems of reed or elder wood packed with glowing embers, both ends sealed with clay beeswax or mud. The air inside was limited just enough to let the ember smolder, not burn, not die. It stayed alive for days. Nomads, monks, border guards, all carried these tubes. Some even rotated multiple fire bundles, ensuring at least one ember always survived. Advanced versions had tiny vents to regulate airflow, controlling the burn rate. Some used special tinder fungus capable of preserving embers for up to 2 months. In some monasteries, the flame was passed from one generation to the next, never allowed to go out. This wasn't a fire-starting trick. It was the art of keeping life alive. And when every modern tool fails, when batteries die, when fuel runs out, what you'll need is not a way to spark a flame, but a flame already alive in your pocket. But keeping fire was only the beginning. Next, they had to protect their food without fridges, without salt, and they did it with smoke. Skill 2, smoke preservation, not just smoking, a complete preservation system. Today we think of smoke as flavor bacon, salmon, barbecue. But for medieval people, smoke wasn't about taste. It was about survival. They turned smoke into a multi-purpose preservation tool. Grain, medicine, fabrics, ropes, all placed inside specialized smoke chambers. Meat wasn't the only thing worth saving. In damp climates with no refrigeration and constant pests, everything that could rot had to be protected. And smoke did the job. They understood what wood produced what smoke. Pine and juniper to repel insects from seed grain. Oak for gentle smoke to preserve herbs. Linen, fishing nets, animal hides, all smoke to resist rot, repel water, and last longer. The chamber design was genius lower level for meat-high heat, middle shelves for grains, top racks for herbs, where the smoke was cooler, gentler. Some herbs even became stronger after smoking. Their chemistry changed active compounds, enhanced. This knowledge wasn't written. It was passed mouth to mouth across generations. To the ancients, smoke didn't just preserve. It transformed what was fragile into something enduring. Today, we rely on electricity, deep freezers, and chemicals. They needed only wood, fire, and patience. But protecting food wasn't enough. They also had to defend their homes from wild beasts, thieves, even nature itself. And they did it with living plants, thorned, dense, and alive. Skill 3, living fences, a defense system that grows back. Before barbed wire or security cameras, medieval people built living walls, green barriers that didn't just keep danger out, but fed them, healed them, and helped them survive. The method's simple but brilliant. Young saplings were cut at an angle bent to the ground and woven together. The trees didn't die. They grew sideways, thicker, stronger. In a few years, the fence became a wall of thorns taller than a man, too thick to cut, too alive to burn quickly. They chose thorny species blackthorn hawthorn for defense. Mixed in were wild apples, raspberries, hazelnuts for food. Birds came to eat the fruit and stayed to eat the bugs. Elder and willow offered medicine and cordage. Every branch had a use. This wasn't just a fence, it was a micro-ecosystem. Birds nested and hunted pests. Falling leaves fed the soil. Fresh shoots became ties. Cuttings became kindling. Some fences were strategically engineered secret paths, hidden ditches, lookout points. And the best part, they didn't weaken with time. They grew stronger every year. Today, people pour concrete walls. Medieval folk planted living borders. And when the grid fails, the fuel runs out and metal rusts. Only what can grow will remain. But survival wasn't just about keeping dangers out. They had to control what was inside: heat, humidity, perishable goods. And they did it with clay. In a way no one expected. Skill 4. Clay batteries. Not to store power, but to store life. Medieval people had no electricity, no freezers, no lithium cells, but they understood something modern humans have forgotten. Clay stores heat, cold, and time. They built batteries out of earthenware, not to charge devices, but to preserve food, regulate temperature, and extend shelf life. The basic structure: a double-layered pot. The gap between layers filled with wet sand. As water evaporates through the outer clay, it draws heat from the inside, creating natural refrigeration. No ice, no power, yet milk stayed fresh for days. Meat spoiled far slower. In reverse, they made heat batteries, bricks mixed with stone dust or scrap metal heated in fire, wrapped in wool, placed in beds, sleeves, or baby clothes, radiating warmth through the night. But the crown jewel was the seed vault, sealed clay jars layered with ash salt and herbs, creating a microclimate where seeds could survive for decades. Some monasteries recorded grain sprouted after 30 years in clay storage. This wasn't primitive. This was survival tech that never needed charging. Today, batteries explode. Fridges fail without power, but what they used could be reused 1,000 times. No leaks, no fires, and it all began from the earth beneath their feet. But storage wasn't enough. In storms and rain, their tents and cloaks had to survive too. They didn't have Gore-Tex, but they created waterproofing with nothing but their hands. Skill 5. Friction glaze. No plastics, no chemicals, just heat and time. Long before Gore-Tex or nanocoatings, medieval people developed a waterproofing method that even modern gear hasn't truly surpassed. Friction glaze, a technique that sealed every fiber with nothing but natural elements and bare hands. Here's how they did it. They melted tree resin, usually pine spruce or birch, mixed it with animal fat and beeswax. Once cooled to a paste, it was rubbed by hand into cloth or leather. Not just applied, but pressed, kneaded, and polished for hours. Friction generated heat. The fibers opened. The mixture sank deep into the weave. The result, the fabric stayed soft. It breathed, but rain slid off it like glass. Sweat escaped, water didn't enter, and this coating did more than repel rain. It resisted mold, insects, even ultraviolet rays. Some formulas added charcoal powder for sun protection chalk to prevent cracking in cold weather, or herbs to repel mosquitoes. Each region had its own recipe, but the principle was the same: pure waterproofing, straight from nature. This wasn't chemical engineering, it was high craftsmanship. While modern coatings peel after a few seasons, friction glaze only needs one thing: a pair of hands and a deep understanding of the forest. A shield made from trees. No factory required, no repurchase needed, but when the fire dies, the sky goes dark and your map becomes useless. How do you find your way? Medieval people didn't need GPS. They used sound to navigate their world. Skill 6. Sound navigation. No sight, no touch, only sound to know where you are. Before maps, before compasses, centuries before GPS. Medieval people mastered the art of sound navigation, not animal instinct but trained human skill. They didn't just listen, they read the environment by ear. Echo, muffle, ambient frequency. Footsteps sounded different on clay than on sand. Wind through oak groves whispered differently than through pine. Even insect calls gave clues about humidity, temperature, and coming storms. In thick fog, dense forest, or pitch-black night, they didn't freeze. They tapped trees with walking sticks and listened to the echo. The return told them distance, openness, even the direction of running water. Some could detect a stream over a kilometer away, just from the way low-frequency sound bounced through the woods. Monks, nomads, and traders built sound maps in their minds. Each place had its own tone, its own rhythm, its own voice. They listened to avoid danger, to stay on course, to know when to seek shelter. When the eyes failed, the ears became a survival radar. Today, we rely completely on devices, but the old world needed only one thing, an inner sense that never runs out of battery, because navigation isn't about seeing. It's about understanding what you hear. But what if every book, every map, every tool was wiped out? What would be left? Medieval people had a knowledge system with no books, no servers, but it could never be deleted. Skill 7. Communal knowledge networks. No books, no servers, yet never forgotten. Before books became common, before writing spread across the land, medieval people still passed down centuries of survival knowledge, not on paper, but in living memory networks embedded in the community itself. They didn't rely on one elder to remember everything. They divided the knowledge. One person knew healing plants, another remembered how to harvest them, a third knew how to turn them into medicine. No one knew it all, but together they lacked nothing. Knowledge didn't live in individuals. It lived in a fragmented shared system connected through collective memory. To avoid distortion, they used rhyme, rhythm, melody. A simple song could carry the steps of tanning, leather methods of preserving grain, even weather signs in the sky. Children learned through games, not by being taught, but by activating memory through play. The entire living space became a memory drive. The house beam reminded them of harvest time. The kitchen layout triggered processing steps. They remembered by location, not by reading. No USB sticks, but distributed memory, alive, active, and impossible to erase. Today, we store everything on digital servers, but one blackout and it's all gone. The medieval world lost nothing because they stored their survival where nothing else could die, inside people themselves. So after all 7 skills, what do we see? Not primitiveness, but a resilient, interconnected survival system that depended on nothing but nature and human hands. And compared to the fragile comfort of modern life, we must ask, who's really more vulnerable now? We have technology. They had systems. Today, our lives depend on batteries, signals, and global supply chains. One blackout, one network glitch, and everything slows or stops. But medieval people, they didn't rely on anything that could break. They lived by what could be renewed, preserved, shared. We have fire starters. They carried living flame. We have refrigerators. They had clay. We have Google. They had a living network of memory that never needed charging. This isn't about them being better. It's about us forgetting that survival is possible with nothing but knowledge hands and the natural world. And when the world turns unstable, the only things worth trusting may be the ones we once called outdated, because true survival doesn't come from the gear you carry, but from what's inside you in knowledge, adaptability, and human grit. When there's no plan B left, skills don't go out of style, and resilience doesn't need technology. Medieval people didn't prepare for survival, they lived it. Every day, every season, every generation, no backup tools, no reset button, no plan B. Everything they did, from preserving fire, to storing food, to memorizing vital knowledge, wasn't for curiosity. It was to see the next day. And they did, without electricity, without the internet, without rescue. We live in an age of convenience, but also fragility. And when systems fail, it won't be the ones with the fanciest gear who survive. It'll be the ones who carry what the medievals once had: skill, endurance, and a flexible mind. So ask yourself, what are you preparing? Tools or knowledge gear? Or the ability to survive when no gear is left at all?